Take that again.
But they live...
Sherry has to edit this.
Sorry.
What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 32-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was on a quest to determine if society had been sleeping on that series. I said yes, and now I'm seeing if society has slept on the entire series by covering Heroes of Olympus, and I'm not on this journey alone. I'm never on this journey alone. I am joined today by someone who is just as famous and important as our last guest. Mm-hmm. It's Kelly Schubert. Kelly, how's it going?
What an intro.
Just as famous and important to me, if not more important. Yeah, you have the fun job of following Walker Scobell. How does it feel?
Yeah. Well, I'd argue I'm just as big of a fan as him, if not a bigger fan of Heroes of Olympus, because he's only read them once. I have now read them twice.
Well, there you go. Let's go through. What is your history with the Heroes of Olympus books? We know your history with PJO, but what about HOO?
I read Heroes of Olympus after I finished the original 5. I took a little time. I think I then reread them.
You did.
And then read Heroes of Olympus immediately following that. And then recently, I don't know what inspired me to do it all over again, but I read the Percy Jackson series again, and then Heroes of Olympus immediately after that again. I'm not sure why I did that, but I've been having fun doing it.
I think you did it because you knew I was getting close, and you wanted to start talking to me about stuff, but you read it so quickly you didn't know exactly what happened when.
That is a very good point. That is, I think, exactly why I did it. I had, again, read too fast.
Oh, I think I also know why you were rereading them. It was a combo of me reading them soon, but I think what actually sparked it was Johnny was reading them for the first time and texting you about it. Mm-hmm. And I think you got excited about it and you wanted to read them as well. So you and Johnny had a situation where he had our paperbacks and you were reading our hardcovers, and then you were trading them back and forth, and you two were more excited about talking than Johnny was to talk to me.
Yes, that's what it was. Johnny started texting me about his first read through, and some of the things I had forgotten, and some of the things I didn't know if I was going to spoil something for him. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm just going to start reading again. So then Johnny and I kind of had a little mini book club where we were almost in the same spot in Heroes of Olympus, but me for the second time.
Mm-hmm. And now you've moved on. You've even cracked open Trials of Apollo.
Yes, I have. I cracked open Trials of Apollo, got one chapter in. Actually, I got one sentence in, and then put the book down for like a week because I needed to process for a bit. Now I'm one chapter in, and I'm still processing.
Well, I look forward to getting to those in 35 years, but let's get into chapter 4. Now, originally, the plan for here on out is to do an episode about every perspective. So 2 chapters for Jason, 2 chapters for Piper. I'm assuming the next 2 will be Leo. That is the plan. We had to alter the plan a little bit because I had the wonderful problem of, how do I fit Walker Scobell into the podcast? But this will kind of get us back on track. We're just going to talk about chapter 4 today, and then we'll be back into the normal swing of things, and hopefully no one's upset with me.
And it allows me to come back on and talk about my new favorite friend, Piper.
Yeah, you seem to be very pro Piper. I like her enough so far, but honestly, even after these 2 chapters, I don't know much about her. So I'm kind of still like withholding my judgment. Currently where it stands, I love Leo. Piper seems fine, and I'm intrigued by what lies ahead. And Jason, to me, he just feels like classic all-American hero. Like he just feels like apple pie, baseball, golden retriever.
Well, Piper, even in the fact that we're getting her, is it third person omnipotent?
No, someone reached out to me about this. They sent me a very helpful email to the TNO Gmail.
Okay.
And they opened it by saying, I promise this is not me being patronizing, but I'm a 3rd grade teacher and I'm teaching my class about it.
That's the person we need teaching this to us. So.
Exactly. So this is from Lexi, who was at the Charlotte live show we did recently, which you can get the stream to if you go to our merch store. But she says, this is not meant to be patronizing, but it is a funny coincidence that y'all were talking about what the POV was. And I am working on a lesson lesson for my third graders next week. The point of view is third person limited. Third person omniscient is what we usually think of where an outside narrator knows all things, like Sally is sad and Don is hungry. Third person limited is what we actually see more often in YA. It is a third person narrator who can tell you that Don is hungry and he thinks that Sally looks sad. So we have confirmation third person limited, which I think makes sense and tracks, and I have enjoyed because I feel like it's still a way for us to get third person narration, but you get enough of the stuff that would be first person. You just get a lot of things like sassy comment Piper thought instead of I thought sassy comment.
Yeah.
So I think it works.
But even though we are third person limited, getting Piper's perspective, she's still actually even holding her cards close to the vest.
Correct.
To us as the reader, we don't really know what's going on with her yet. Who's her dad? What's her family history? What's with this dream she's having? She's really not giving us a lot of information yet.
Sorry, I zoned out a little bit because you said cards close to the vest, and I've only ever heard cards close to the chest. So I had to Google.
Oh, no, it's a chest.
According
vest.
to MatthewDix.com, who seems to be the reputable source on this, according to Google, they are both used. It says close to the vest appeared first, close to the chest followed almost immediately, and today both are used with equal frequency.
Well, I'm really an OGer when it comes to holding
You're
my
old
cards.
soul.
I wear a lot of vests. And
I think what it is you just love vests. You always want me to wear vests for whatever reason.
And between the two of us, we own one vest. 2 vests.
Are both of them yours? I don't think I own any vests.
I have one puffy vest.
Oh, you have an athletic vest and a Christmas vest.
Oh, wait. Don't you have a Christmas vest?
No, I have a Christmas sweater.
Oh, is that my Christmas vest?
Yes, you have a Christmas vest.
Oh, I have a puffy vest, an athletic vest,
right,
and a Christmas vest.
What's your puffy vest?
My puffy vest is that blue one that fits in the bag.
Oh, yeah. And then you have the running
enthusiast.
vest from Barb.
I'm really invested in
Nice. Well
this
done.
piece
There you
of
go.
clothing.
We got it. Cool. All right, let's get into chapter 4, which is called Piper. We will do the thing now inspired by Robert from the Damn Me page. We'll name it at the end. But right now it's just called chapter 4, Piper. And in that spirit, I forgot to do the what should we name chapter 3 thing with Walker because I was too worried about trying to fit as many questions as I could before Disney said you have to hang up this phone call. So if I had to name chapter 3 something, I would give it something kind of, we're trying to go with the quirky title. I would go with We Go for a Dip in the Lake.
I would name it specifically because you were talking to Walker, Where's Percy?
But that's not actually...
Who's Percy?
Yeah, who is Percy?
Who
is Percy is pretty good.
Who's Percy?
Or this Percy guy must be important.
This Percy guy must be important.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the chapter, we take a dip in the lake. It was a very short chapter.
It was super short.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of works in the formula of usually what I have found is the chapter title is something true, but you don't really know what happens until the end.
Yeah.
So, chapter 4, Piper. Where we last left our heroes, we had the campers dispersing. We had Leo going on a tour with Will and Piper about to go on a tour with Annabeth. Now, Piper gets the sense that Annabeth isn't fully focused on the tour. Annabeth explains all of the Camp Half-Blood stuff, including how the increase in campers means that it is busy year-round, even in winter, like it is now. And Piper can just tell that her brain is elsewhere, probably focusing on Percy. Piper starts running through dozens of questions in her mind, but she keeps her thoughts close to the vest, given Annabeth's mood. From atop Half-Blood Hill, Piper can see that the cabins are in an omega shape now, and there are 20 in all. So before we had our U, now we have the 2 wings on either side. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the omega that's on the books. I don't know if it's supposed to be I don't think it's Jason's coin. I think it's just a logo for the books, and I'm overthinking it. But the logo that's on the books that we made the stickers, you can also get on the merch store, where it's like the gold coin with the omega on it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like anything in the story, but I'm wondering
Could be this.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it's the gold coin because of the Jason thing, and then the omega now because of this, and then also omega it's a Greek letter, not a Roman letter. So I don't know. But I was intrigued by the omega, and I was intrigued by now there are confirmed 20 in all. So that means we have 8 new cabins,
8
right?
new cabins. And they tell us who some of them are.
Or was it more than 8 new cabins? Because there wasn't a Hades cabin before. So are there 9
Would
new
have been
cabins?
11 before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the U was uneven before? Or I guess perfectly in the middle? They might have said it already. But regardless, there's 9-ish new cabins.
They list Hades as one of the new cabins.
Correct.
So they list Hades, Hecate, and Iris as 3 of the new cabins that are built.
Correct. I'm intrigued to see who the remaining cabins are. But we got 20. And Piper notes that one of the cabins is black with fiery green torches out front. Hello, Hades cabin. Piper takes the news that her mom is a goddess quite well, much to Annabeth's surprise. But Piper says that there were clues throughout her life, such as how her dad was always pretty vague about her mother and didn't seem to always be telling the whole truth when Piper would ask questions about her.
Yeah, I'm not sure my mind would jump immediately to she must be a Greek goddess.
Well, I think it's more of she's less shocked by the news of your mother isn't who you've been told she is.
Well, she goes on to say the other reason she's not shocked.
The dream, right?
The dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have here in my notes, we learned more about Piper's dream because the biggest clue for Piper was the dream saying, quote, "Soon they will find you, demigod. When they do, follow our directions, cooperate, and your father might live." And
ominous.
Yes, very ominous. But what I'm going to say, as someone who's watched enough action movies where someone flips the other side. We just rewatched Dune in prep for Dune 2 Tune. Skip ahead if you don't want Dune spoilers. But the guy who's the mole, when he does the thing and he's like, oh, they had my wife.
Yeah.
So I had to do this so they would keep her alive. And then they kill the wife and him. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, of course they're going to do this. So because in the dream, they say, do what we say and your father might live. I'm going to need more written confirmation than might, because your father might live means absolutely nothing. You're going to do all this stuff and then they're going to kill your dad.
Who do you think the voice belongs to? Do you have any guesses?
I will get into it as more things go on.
Okay.
So I will let my notes in real time say when I got there, as opposed to me
Gotcha.
being like, well, at this moment, I knew that it was. You know. So Piper doesn't reveal this to Annabeth. Instead, she tells Annabeth that this morning is what made this all more believable, which I think is a good lie for Piper.
Yes. I mean, that would also kind of count. Fighting storm spirits preps you for other things.
Totally. Yeah. Also, when Piper lies, Liper. So Annabeth says that the claiming should happen tonight since Piper is 15. That's way older than 13. And Piper goes 13. And then Annabeth explains the whole monster smell when you turn 13. It gets more intense thing. She explains protectors, and Hedge being a satyr is also not a shock to Piper since she has seen how that guy eats. So Piper canonically knows how goats eat, I guess. Piper asks if Coach Hedge is okay. Annabeth says she doesn't know and notes that it is hard to fight off storm spirits because even celestial bronze will go right through them unless you surprise them. So that could explain some of the fight mechanics. But then Piper brings up that Jason's sword made light work of them, and Annabeth calls him lucky, which feels very Annabeth. Like, not going to give credit to Jason or his sword. Instead, she's going to chalk it up to luck. Annabeth then explains the Tartarus monster dust situation and how they can reform, and she thinks that Dylan would have no reason to keep Hedge alive, so she doesn't have high hopes for Hedge, which makes me think, all right, Coach Hedge is going to be totally fine. As Piper worries more about what's in store, she reveals another line from the dream as narrator-ish Piper, quote, "Do what we tell you or the consequences will be painful." So, I know. Again, it's just like, these threats are too empty. Like, you can't. If Piper does the stuff, I'm going to be very upset. Annabeth then comforts Piper, saying that the campers are her friends and will help her through this. And I like Annabeth being really sweet to her. I think this is nice, but Piper doubts that they'll be nice to her and help her through this because Piper's already thinking that she is going to
betray everybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
Piper says, quote, "I've been kicked out of 5 different schools in the past 5 years." And Annabeth goes, "Only 5?" with no sense of sass. She is genuinely impressed that she has only gotten kicked out of 5. And then Annabeth explains that she ran away when she was very young. She explains the ADHD dyslexia thing. And then she starts to get into a story about Percy, but then her face darkens and she hard pivots to asking Piper how she got in trouble. Like, just imagine she just stares off into the middle distance. Oh no, my missing boyfriend. Piper, going against her usual instinct, which is to fight someone who asks this, instead explains that she steals stuff, but immediately tries to walk it back to not really steal. And then Annabeth asks the very normal question to ask a new friend, "Is your family poor?" Which, okay, Annabeth, that's a bit abrasive. You met her a couple of hours ago, max?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, like, maybe tiptoe around this question. But Piper says no, the reason she stole was for attention. Annabeth asks for clarification on what Piper meant by saying she didn't really steal things, and Piper explains that people just give her stuff. And the explanation feels like she talks people into doing what she wants. And if anyone has listened to Lauren Chippen's podcast, The Bright Sessions, there is a character, Damien, who has superpowers. It's like angsty queer X-Men, great podcast. And one of the guys, Damien, has the power to, I don't know exactly, it's like an evil empath kind of thing. Like he just makes you want to do whatever he wants. And he is more villainous. So I'm intrigued to see
Not
if
so much
that
stealing
really
BMWs and stuff.
or just stealing them for more nefarious. I mean, that is the kind of thing he would do, but he's definitely like, he's not a hero. So you usually see him doing stuff more in the evil sense. So I'm very intrigued if this is what Piper's powers are. I'm very intrigued to see a good guy use these powers. So I will just have to see what's in store, and you can't say anything. Otherwise the trapdoor will activate.
Does it make you think more about who her godly parent might be? Because Annabeth says, if it was your dad, I would think it was Hermes, the god of thieves, but it's her mom. So who are you now thinking?
I don't know, because I don't know that I know enough about Greek or even Roman gods to figure out who would be like the power of persuasion. I have a different theory about maybe who Piper's mom is, but it doesn't really have to do with the power. I don't think I know enough about Greek mythology to pick who her mom is. I just have something based on vibes later in the chapter that has a big home run guess for me. Annabeth says that if her dad was a god, it would probably be Hermes, but not sure of who her mom would be, and this causes Piper to wonder if her mom knows about the dream. Annabeth studies her, making Piper realize that she has to be careful about what she says around Annabeth because Annabeth is clearly very smart. Annabeth asks her to follow her elsewhere to check one last thing, and they approach a cave near the top of the hill with bones and old swords on the ground, torches outside the entrance, and a velvet curtain with snake embroidery. Annabeth calls it a friend's place, and then I wrote my notes, meaning it's Rachel Elizabeth Dare's, and that means she views Rachel Elizabeth Dare as a friend fully. Yay, let's go. When Piper is stunned that Annabeth has a friend who lives in a cave, Annabeth explains that her family has a luxury condo in Queens, begging the question, when did they move? Because didn't they have a
Manhattan before?
I think they had a brownstone in Brooklyn or Manhattan.
Huh.
I think. Let me pull up my very legal copy of the Book 5 PDF and search for brownstone, because I'm pretty sure that they had a house elsewhere. Yes, quote from Book 5. She has the top floor of her family's mansion, which is a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn.
Maybe she lives in like LIC.
Yeah.
So she's like right in between the two. And Annabeth doesn't really know which one's which.
Or she realized that Brooklyn is bad and Queens is good, and she moved to Queens.
Or they have a luxury condo in Queens and a brownstone in Brooklyn.
Yeah, given Mr. Dare, that's probably the most likely scenario.
Condo in Queens and a brownstone in Brooklyn.
Whoa, and then a mansion in Manhattan. And a big-ass apartment in the Bronx. And something in Staten Island.
Something in Staten Island.
So, apparently, there's a new house in Queens for the Dare family. Annabeth continues that she goes to finishing school in Connecticut, but she lives in a cave when she's at Camp Half-Blood, and she also explains that she's the Oracle. Annabeth says that she was hoping that her friend would, and then Piper finished, help you find Percy. Annabeth looks like the life is just drained out of her after they talk about this, and she sits down. Piper looks away because it's too awkward, and then she sees the golden fleece on a tree in the distance and thinks, oh, okay, Greek camp, I get it. They have a replica of the fleece. But then she notices Peleus, the dragon, and is floored that it's the actual real fleece. Annabeth, exhausted, gives a half-hearted confirmation. Oh, yeah, that's the real one. Piper asks how long Annabeth has been on the search for Percy, and Annabeth says 3 days, 6 hours, and 12 minutes. That would be a great trivia question at Percy Jackson Trivia. Final question, how long had Annabeth been searching for Percy when she talked with Piper? That would be
3 days, 12 hours, 6 minutes. Putting that in the brain bank for later trivia nights.
If there ever is a Percy Jackson trivia, we got to find it and clean up. We got to assemble a super group and win gift cards to whatever trivia place is doing PJO trivia. Piper asks if Annabeth really has no idea what happened to Percy, and Annabeth explains, quote, we were so excited because we both started winter break early. We met up at camp on Tuesday, figured we had 3 weeks together. It was going to be great. Then after the campfire, he He kissed me goodnight, went back to his cabin, and in the morning he was gone. We searched the whole camp. We contacted his mom. We've tried to reach him every way we know how. Nothing. He just disappeared. And before I read this quote, I wrote, okay, let's see if I can guess out of nowhere where Percy is. And then after I read this quote, I wrote, I got nothing.
They've tried it all.
It's just nothing is truly helpful here. So I'm not really sure. I don't have a guess. And I was just at this point trying to guess anything about what is going on in the major plot of this book and the whole series. And it's hard because we defeated Kronos already. So my only thought is, A, who is bigger than Kronos? Like, who is the step above Kronos? And the only thing I can think of is going a step backwards. And if Oranos comes back, like that's the only thing I can think of. That is, if we're going down the Greek line, if Kronos is out of the picture, Oranos is the only thing that's left that I've ever heard of before. The other thing is, if we are going to embrace Roman stuff, there could be like Roman Kronos, Romos. Like there could be an equivalent evil type Titan thing that's on the same sort of level as Kronos, but is the Roman equivalent. But I don't know if there is one that is like different enough to make it not just Kronos to the sequel. So I feel more confident about Oranos being a guess than Roman Kronos being the guess. It's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
The only other thing, and I don't know how the Roman gods are going to be characterized. I don't think they would be evil, but there also could be something where it's like the Roman gods want to take over Western civilization. Like, oh, the Greeks are ruining it with their whole Olympus thing. We're better with Roman Olympus, but I don't think it's that. If I had to guess something, I would lean Oranos just because it feels like the next step past Kronos.
Okay.
Piper's big takeaway is that this missing Percy Jackson situation happened 3 days ago, which is when she had her dream. Piper asks how long they've been together. Annabeth says since August 18th. And that's Percy's birthday, right? So that's like when the events of book 5 took place and they had their kiss and all that. So that would be when they got together. Piper says that that is almost exactly when she met Jason, but they've only been together a few weeks. Annabeth says, Piper, ... about that. Maybe you should sit down and you can call this my favorite painting because oof, by Ed Ruscha. It's a good painting. It's a really good painting. But yeah, anytime someone says maybe you should sit down after saying about that, you're not going to get good news. You're going to have to strap in for some bad news.
Sit down because we don't want you hitting the ceiling when you jump up and down for joy. That's
definitely
usually how it's used.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, all the time. Piper is already on the defensive about Jason having lost his memory, saying, but we've known each other for 4 months. Annabeth says that it's the mist. And then Annabeth explains how the mist works. Piper thinks that it can't be the mist because she's a demigod, but Annabeth says that demigods can be affected by the mist as well. Piper relays basically her entire history with Jason to try and convince Annabeth that her memories are real. And Annabeth admits that her memories are sharper than most, but then she hits her with the big question. Where's he from? And Piper stammers. And then Annabeth asks if she ever noticed his tattoo before today. And Piper hesitates. And then Piper asks the biggest question, what's his last name?
Aww.
And as far as a high school relationship, that's not the weirdest thing to not know someone's last name. But then I remembered they went to the same school, so then it is weird. Because I definitely had a 7th grade girlfriend who I never knew her last name. Never
really?
I met her through a friend in the summer. So she was just Amy, and that was it.
You never asked?
I was 12.
Never called her parents anything?
We ended up dating for like a month. She dumped me for some like tall skateboard guy. And I think I like maybe had learned it like indirectly, but it was also a time when we were using MySpace and not Facebook. So you had like usernames and not your full legal name there.
I suppose.
So
we didn't even ask.
There were other more important questions to ask, like, will you go out with me? Not what's your last name? Details. Wasn't on the brain. But yeah, high school plus being in the same school, she should probably know Jason's last name.
Yeah.
I don't even know Jason's last name though. Piper starts to cry, feeling embarrassed. She just crumbles, wondering if everything good in her life had to be stripped away today. And my first thought was, what else was stripped away from her? I guess like her dad, but not today. Her dad went missing days ago.
She's starting to get the inkling that her dad is missing. She had this really great situation going to a school with her friends that she liked and had a boyfriend. And now all that's gone too. I get it.
Yeah, okay, I can see it. Then Piper recalls the dream saying, yes, unless you do exactly what we say. And I'm confused. Did she say something to the dream voice? Because it starts with yes. So you would think that would be a response to something. The dream's not responding to Annabeth or to Piper's thought if she's thinking about what was said in the dream. So what's the yes for?
Maybe she's been feeling this kind of trepidation for a while. And so the dream was responding to some other form of, why is my dad being taken from me?
Gotcha. Annabeth tries to cheer her up, saying that Jason is here now and maybe it'll work out between the two of them for real. And I was kind of excited for the mid-relationship couple, but I guess we're already going to get that with Percy and Annabeth, so I think it's okay, even if we have another couple that's like getting together, or it could be the fun, weird choice where they just don't end up together, even though they started quote-unquote together. Could be very interesting. Piper thinks that it's unlikely because of the dream, but she doesn't say anything to Annabeth. She asks Annabeth if the whole reason that she brought her up here was so that no one would see her freak out, and Annabeth says she knows what it's like to lose a boyfriend. And I think that's very sweet. Annabeth's being so sweet.
She physically lost her boyfriend.
True, yes, different
Where'd he go?
wording. Piper is still convinced that they had something. She asks how he got there, why he showed up, why he doesn't remember anything at all. Annabeth thinks that those are all good questions and hopes that Chiron will have answers. Annabeth asks Piper if she's ready to go back down. Piper thinks again of her dream, saying, you'll betray them for us, or you'll lose everything. Piper thinks that Camp Half-Blood will just be another place where people will be disappointed in her and will kick her out. So she lies and tells Annabeth that she's ready to go down. And now we can take our mid-roll break, which I haven't named yet, because the first episode was a live stream and the second one was Walker. So I was like, I'll do a mid thing later, whatever. The Lost Hero. Gotta think of it. Let's go with the Cost Hero for now, but we can leave it subject to change if I think of a better one. But we'll be back after this mid-roll break.
You could also make it something Heroes of Olympus and just use the same thing for all 5.
But then I'll be doing it for so long, and I like switching it up.
You could also do it based off of a character name.
Yeah, but I think in the past I did it all based on the titles, so I want to keep true to that. So for now, the Cost Hero, and then we'll be back to finish out Chapter 4. Hello and welcome to The Lost Euro. Mike from a couple of seconds ago was incorrect. I guess he was correct at the time, but he is no longer correct as we have new information. We have a new name. The Lost Euro will be the mid-roll break name for the Lost Euro episodes. And I had mentioned giving credit to people who reached out, me not being able to find who messaged them. One of the 2 people who messaged me did message me back. The reason I couldn't find them on Instagram is because it was from Twitter. So shout out to Raven, aka Raverny_ on Twitter for The Lost Euro as a name suggestion. Now for other podcast update stuff. First, I want to thank everyone who listened to our past 2 episodes, the interview / episode with Walker and then the interview with Charlie. Those were very fun to put together. And also, if you didn't know, we made video versions of them and they are available on the TNO YouTube channel. I think it's pretty fun for both of them, especially the Charlie interview, because he, as you may have heard, did things where he showed me pictures that he took on his phone or with disposable cameras that he loaded onto his phone, and the visual aid helps. And it's also just kind of fun to see their certain reactions to some of my sillier questions and stuff like that. That's on the TNO YouTube account, which you can just search for The Newest Olympian on YouTube and you'll find it, or you can go to youtube.com/@newestolympian. And I post other stuff there. Episodes get posted there. Live show stuff gets posted there. I'm going to be posting stuff there soon. So head on over, subscribe, check it out. We've got some good stuff over on the TNO YouTube. And speaking of social media, I would say head on over to TNO's Instagram or Twitter at around noon-ish on Monday, May 6th, the day that this is coming out, just for a little tiny announcement. Now, speaking of announcements, you may have heard that we've got some upcoming TNO live shows coming to a city near you if you live in or near one of these cities that I'm about to announce, but we've got some shows coming up in the near future in Seattle, Washington, Vancouver, Canada, Berkeley, California, Nashville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. You can get tickets to all of those at thenewestolympian.com/live. I will also be at LeakyCon in Portland, Oregon around the 4th of July weekend, and then we are looking to add shows in other cities later in the year. So if you follow us on social media, you will get updates about that. But things in the works are Toronto and DC and New York and Philly and some Texas shows. I'm trying to also get New Orleans to happen, but it's been a little bit tricky. But just follow us on social media so you don't miss any sort of announcement. In regards to this episode in particular, I would like to apologize for a missed pun at one point. I don't remember if it's before or after the break because I'm recording this after the fact, but at some point point in this episode, I say that Piper cries. I should have said Cryper. I apologize. I will do better in the future. Now, I would also like to thank the folks who are supporting the show on Patreon. I very much appreciate all of you who have done so. And I would like to give a shout out to the folks who have joined most recently. So shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Kaylin Robertson, Meadow Deering, Garrett Caruso, and Jackery. I'd also like to do a name correction for our newest producer level patron, Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt. They spelled it H-A-N. I said Han because I thought it was like the John Jingleheimer. You get what I was going there. Han Solo spells it. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But I think it's short for Hannah. Thank you all so much for your support. May Hypnos bless you that every nap you take just recharges you. Now, if you're all caught up on the newest Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, you are in luck because I make a whole bunch of podcasts. I'm an independent podcast boy. And if you like this show, you might like my other shows. And one of the shows that I make that you might like is Horse. Horse is a comedic basketball podcast that I co-host with my buddy Adam Amawala. But we present it in a way where whether you are a fan of basketball or you have no idea what's going on, you can follow the episodes. We talk about current things going on with the NBA and the WNBA. We talk about things that have happened in the history books, like wild stories of Charles Barkley in Barcelona and Shaquille O'Neal doing ridiculous things on the internet, all sorts of fun stuff. We've had some really fun interviews recently. The episode that comes out today is an interview with the folks from Tipping Pitches about Alex Rodriguez owning a basketball team. Super goofy stuff. So listen to Horse wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Horse or by going to our website, horsehoops.com. We reference basketball in this episode. If you want to be less confused, head on over and listen to Horse. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon where you get ad-free episodes, now you are going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, such as by one of our new sponsors, Arena Club. If you collect Pokemon cards or other sports trading cards, you should listen to that ad read and check that out. That's a fun new sponsor. But other of these ad reads won't be read by me. Those are inserted locally. So if you live in India, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Hindi or English. And as always, if you get a weird or sketchy ad, send an email to thenewsolympian@gmail.com. I'm trying to get those squashed. I know there was one going around about like some weird petroleum thing. We got that one blocked. So thanks to the folks who messaged about that one. But yeah, if you get anything weird like gambling ads or stuff like that, shoot me a message. Sometimes those ads sneak through my filters and there's only so much I can do, but then we can get individual ads blocked. So I try to stay on top of that. But once those ads are complete, we will get into the rest of this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we are back. And this next section starts with a quote that made me so happy. Quote, "On the central green, a group of campers was playing basketball."
Woo!
So excited. So excited. It continues. "They were incredible shots. Nothing bounced off the rim. 3-pointers went in automatically." I'm so excited that basketball is finally happening. We've had basketball courts for 5+ books and no basketball. And we finally get basketball. And I knew right off the bat, okay, this is going to be the Apollo cabin, right? They've got to be the 3-point shooters.
Yeah. So which basketball players are children of Apollo?
I mean, you got to have Steph Curry, obviously.
Yeah,
JJ Redick, Steve Nash, Rashard Lewis, Ray Allen.
Wow, a lot of children of Apollo in the NBA.
Oh, I could name 3-point shooters, Peja Stojakovic, for the rest of this episode. And I would have a great time. Steve Novak, like it could go on forever. But you can just listen to Horse.
Michael Schubert.
No, not my strong suit. I'm all right, but it's not my strong suit. My strong suit is defense and being annoying. So
and having a good time.
Having a good time.
Wearing fun clothes.
Yep. Annabeth confirms that these people making 3-point shots are members of the Apollo cabin. Piper then sees sword fighting happening and is shocked that the blades are real. And Annabeth says it's sort of the point and then apologizes for the bad pun. I agree. Not the greatest one.
I don't think she meant to make the pun.
It wasn't ideal. Like, it's a fine pun. Annabeth points out cabin 6 to her, and the book notes that there is a carved owl over the door. I didn't remember that being a thing for the Athena cabin, and I wonder if this will be in the TV show. I don't think we actually saw the Athena cabin. I think we only saw the Hermes cabin, and maybe we did like off to the side or something. But I am curious to see if the carved owl makes an appearance. Mm-hmm. Inside, Piper sees books, weapons, and a SmartBoard. Teacher Rick is in the house. And as someone who was in high school when this book came out, I remember when we got SmartBoards in our high school, and it was like a big deal. All of the teachers were very confused by them, except for my math teacher, Mr. Fuchs, who was awesome and utilized it to its full ability, doing lots of cool geometry stuff on it. And I remember one of our teachers, our calculus teacher, let's just call her Miss Rulin because that's her name, and she was a terrible teacher. She one time wrote on the SmartBoard with an Expo marker, and it didn't wipe off.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad.
I would feel worse if she was a better teacher, but she was a horrible professor and was kind of mean. And I had to teach myself calculus in high school. So I got no love for Miss Rulin.
On the contrary, I loved my calculus teacher in high school. He was great. Mr. Ulrich.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome guy.
Yeah. It was me and my buddy Umberto. We taught ourselves calculus BC and we got 5s. Anyway, SmartBoards are here. Very teacher Rick. Annabeth says, quote, speaking of blades, and tries to find the perfect one for Piper. Annabeth then pulls out a celestial bronze bullet only shotgun, which Piper is shocked by. And now that this is the reveal, I'm very excited to put an unaired clip from the Walker interview in, because there was a wonderful moment where Walker accidentally spoiled something for me, and we were just going to delete it. I was just going to go to the grave with this secret so that no one thought anything ill of Walker Scobell, a wonderful, delightful human. But
he only jumped the gun by half a chapter.
Yeah,
so.
and I can see why, because even before recording, he was like, what's chapter 3? What's chapter 4?
Chapter 3 was so short.
It's so short. It's so short. So here's that clip.
Here's Walker Corner.
Celestial bronze sword, celestial bronze shield watch, and also a celestial bronze leaf blower.
And I think a celestial bronze gun later on. Oh my God.
Don't worry about it.
It's later on.
I'll cut it out.
It's later.
Okay.
No, this is for you personally. Forget about that.
Yeah, sure. Just so fun. It's so funny. And I'm so glad that this is how it all shook out, because now I can share that clip because it's so funny. It's such a sweet moment from him to apologize immediately and say that's just for you. Great. So yeah, not a big spoiler at all, but yeah, I laughed out loud because knowing, oh, okay, he spoiled me for like 3 pages.
Yeah, you told me what he spoiled, and I was like, I don't even know what he's talking about. But it's because he had just read these chapters, because he's rereading the books.
Correct.
And so he just read these chapters, so it was more on his brain, I suppose. But yeah, it's so funny.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So then Piper sees something that catches her eye, an unassuming knife with a wooden handle and an 18-inch blade. Annabeth says it's a perizonium, which is usually ceremonial and carried by high-ranking officers in the Greek armies. It's more of a status symbol, but it still offers protection. Piper says she likes it and asks why Annabeth hesitated about it, because she was kind of going through the different options, and when Piper saw this one, Annabeth didn't want to give it to her right away. Annabeth says that the blade has a long story. Things didn't work out too well for its first owner, Helen. And Piper takes a beat and asks, the Helen of Troy? And then I could only think of the clip from High School Musical 3 where Gabriela Montez goes, Troy!
T is in Troy?
No,
well,
T is in the newest Olympian. Piper cannot believe it's just sitting in a tool shed. Annabeth says stuff like that is all around, and Camp Half-Blood is not a museum. The items are meant to be used. They're their heritage. And I love that Annabeth is a pro wear your fancy sneakers that you buy person. Like, I think that's good. It's a good look. She says that the blade was a wedding present from Menelaus, Helen's first husband. She named it Catoptris. And I got to get Dr. Moya in the mix, because what is going on here? Let's talk about it when we get to the in-between book 1 and book 2 episodes in 12 years. It's not going to take that long. We charted it out, right? How long do we think? It was like 7 months, we thought, to do the first book. So that's fine.
There's something I wanted to talk to you about, and we were just like, how long until...
How old will we be? And Annabeth explains that it means mirror or looking glass, because that's all Helen used it for. Piper looks at the blade and sees her reflection in it, but then it changes from herself to flames and a grotesque face like it was cut from bedrock. And then she hears the same laughter as in her dream and sees her dad in chains tied to a post in front of a huge fire. So not great. Piper drops the blade. Annabeth thinks she needs medical attention. Piper says she's okay and just got overwhelmed. She says she wants to keep the blade, and Annabeth hesitates, but then says she's okay with it if Piper is. She says Piper got very suddenly pale, and Annabeth worried that she was having a seizure. So seems kind of spooky. Piper assures her that she's fine, even though she is absolutely not, and asks if the camp has a phone to call her dad. Piper again notices Annabeth calculating, classic Annabeth, and Annabeth explains the whole phone monsters thing, but she still lends Piper her cell phone if Piper promises to keep it a secret.
One of the things about these books being third-person limited instead of third-person omniscient is everybody is so observant. These are the most observant like evaluating group of teens that I have ever met. Annabeth seemed really smart and calculating. I was going to have to watch out for her smarts. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it does kind of track with the story. Percy had a lot of that,
Yes,
where he
did
was
too.
reading emotions. And again, this is one of those things that's just like, it's a book.
I know, yeah,
You just
yeah.
got to chalk it up to it being a book, and otherwise it would be very boring. Piper was wondering what was going on. Piper was wondering what was going on. Piper didn't know what was going on. So she calls her dad's private line, and then I wrote in parentheses, oh, so he is important. And she got the same thing she's gotten the past 3 days, voicemail. She then calls the other number and gets her dad's assistant. And we learn that her dad's name is Mr. McLean. So wondering, well, I mean, we've never learned Piper's last name yet.
That was the first time you learned her last name?
Yes. Look at you being all condescending. I'm not an idiot. I'm just on chapter 4. Piper asks Jane, the assistant, where her dad is, and all she says is that he's out. Piper knows that this means Jane has no idea where he is and asks Jane, when are you going to call the police? Jane says she doesn't want a media circus and says that he'll come back like he always does, and then basically just hangs up on Piper. Annabeth says that the last name McLean sounds really familiar. Piper says it's just a common name. Annabeth asks what her dad does, and Piper says, quote, he's got a degree in the arts. He's a Cherokee artist. And the narrator reveals that this is her standard response, a half-truth that makes people think he sells souvenirs. So I'm wondering, okay, is he an actor? Is he a musician? Those are ways to kind of say he's famous, but I'm just going to say he's an artist. So those were the two ideas I had initially. Annabeth looks suspicious and asks Piper if she wants to continue. Piper fastens her blade, promises to herself to figure out later how it works, and then agrees. Strolling past the cabins, none of them just feel right to Piper. None of them feel like home. She recognizes the Artemis cabin as they pass it, and Annabeth is struck by how much Greek mythology Piper knows. Piper explains that she did some reading when her dad was working on a project last year. And project feels more like actor than musician, but it also does, maybe this is just because I'm married to an architect, does also sound like architect.
Well, you know, us famous architects in our private lines.
I don't know. Frank Lloyd Wright, maybe. But at this point, I was thinking actor, project, movie, or TV show kind of thing.
It would explain why Annabeth recognized the name a little bit.
Well, Annabeth says she had never seen a movie. Or is that just in the TV show? The TV show, she said she never saw a movie.
I meant if Piper's dad is an architect.
Right. Yes, that's also what I was thinking. But I don't know. I feel like Piper wouldn't be worried about, like, she wouldn't be having a standard response like, oh, my dad, the famous architect that everyone is always being so annoying about. Well, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen.
Well, us architects live a famous lifestyle.
Yeah, people are always just stopping you in the streets. Are you Kelly? Though it is a thing when people notice, like us, the few times that it does happen, a lot of the times people will be like, oh, I thought that looked like you, and then I saw Kelly and I knew it was you. Or there was the time when we got recognized in a museum and a woman saw you in the women's restroom and then was like, oh, I knew you must be here too.
Yeah, she saw me in the bathroom and went out looking for you because I'm glad she gave you some bathroom privacy and didn't in the middle of the bathroom be like, are you Kelly? Which was nice, I suppose. Or that the time when we were hiking in New Zealand.
Right.
And I was in front of you and I passed somebody who gave me kind of a look that they knew me, and I was like, I'm going to turn around and see if they say something to Mike. And then you came over the hill, and the look on her face, I was like, oh, she knows who Mike is.
That was the coolest because
that was so cool.
They went to the Sydney, Australia show, and then we were in New Zealand after, and then we just happened to be on the hike at the same time. It was like a dad and his daughter, and she had said that she went to the show with her sister, who was like a bigger fan, and then she's the one who got to see me. So it was funny.
Just such cool timing. And then we ran into them again later in the day when we were headed back down too. It was very cool timing. It was neat.
It was pretty sweet. We took a selfie and everything. It was great. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So Annabeth says, "Oh, I thought your dad did Cherokee art." And Piper says, "He does other stuff too."
Just like that.
Quote, Piper thought she'd blown it. McLean, Greek mythology. Thankfully, Annabeth didn't seem to make the connection. So Greek mythology makes me feel like he acted in some Greek type thing if we're going down the actor route. But again... Greek mythology made it feel more like, because part of it to me in my brain was Greek. Ooh, columns, architecture. But I'm still leaning actor, and he was in some sort of Greek movie or TV show or something where, they tell an old story of something.
It is a cool way to give us a character who knows a little bit more about Greek mythology.
Yeah, it's a fun way rather than book Percy, which is just, I happen to remember the things only from my Greek mythology and Latin classes. It's a more believable, well, I knew Greek mythology stuff because I nerded out about it when my dad was acting as Hercules in a live action Hercules thing or whatever. Annabeth explains Artemis and the hunters a little bit. Piper is sad that Artemis can't be her mom, and she's uninterested in being a hunter because Jason. Piper is fighting, thinking that Annabeth would make a good friend, and how no one will like her, quote, once they find out. They go past the Aphrodite cabin. Piper is revolted. Annabeth laughs, but says that they're not all bad. And then we get this exchange, starting with Annabeth. The last head counselor we had was great. What happened to her? And then the narrator says, Annabeth's expression darkened. Quote, we should keep moving. She was not great. She was the spy. Beckendorf is dead because of Silena Beauregard. She is not great. She did a cool thing at the end, sure. Yes. Clarice did all the hard work.
I know.
She's not great. People are dead because of her.
She attempted to redeem herself in the end and did a brave thing in the end. But... yeah, she wasn't great.
No, she was not great. She had so many opportunities.
She was deceptive for 5 years or however long she was a spy. They didn't actually, did they tell us how long there was a spy?
I think it really ramped up with like book 4 stuff.
But it wouldn't have been, I always assumed she was a spy the entire time because she had to have been passing information to Luke and Luke left after the first.
I think he had multiple, but the thing is it was like the Kronos charm thing and Kronos wasn't reformed until book 4, right? I think book 4, because it was in the labyrinth when they get to Mount Othrys. So I think that it was just kind of like 2 years of being the spy. But regardless, people are dead because of her.
Yeah.
She could have revealed, like the big thing with me and Silena, she could have told Percy in the Plaza Hotel when no one was around. Because her whole thing was like, I didn't want people to get mad at me. You could have told Percy and it would have been okay.
Could have been a double agent.
There's so many choices.
Yeah.
So many chances. She's not great. She's not great. I don't like this. And I don't like that. I really don't like that they like keep trying to sweep it under the rug. Learn from your mistakes.
Personality wise, though, I think they're trying to say that she's not like Drew.
Sure.
Who we've met and instantly don't like because she's been identified as a mean girl.
Maybe that's what she was going for. Like, oh, Silena was likable, except for the fact that some of her friends are dead because of her. Like, that's kind of it's kind of a big
for
thing.
Some fundamental moral issues.
Oh, she did. She is responsible for the death of some really good souls. I don't know, but she did a nice thing at the end. Oh, so grumble. Anyway, Annabeth explains the Zeus Hera thing, the big 3 pact thing, all that kind of stuff. Piper can tell that Annabeth doesn't like Hera. Annabeth says that they have a history that she thought was over, but when Percy vanished, she got a strange dream featuring Hera. And here's my big home run thing. Is Hera the mistress that's been talking to people in dreams? Because that could be very interesting. I still feel like the mistress is probably someone we haven't met yet, but are we going to get evil Hera? That's what I at least wrote in my notes here. Don't want to see. Piper guesses it was the dream that told her to come and get them. Annabeth says she doesn't want to talk about it because she has nothing nice about Hera to say. And then I wrote in my notes, ooh, or is Hera Piper's mom? All I got is that Hera's going to be important, and it can go one of 2 directions. We're either getting like nice Hera or we're getting evil Hera. There's no in between. Hera's going to be a big freaking deal, and it's one of the 2. And you can't say anything because I've installed a trapdoor here in our closet.
Trying to think of something I can say right
just
now.
Move it along.
Wouldn't both of those scenarios be interesting, though?
Either would be great, and I would love it if it's one of them. Or both. Whoa, she's Piper's mom and she's evil. Piper asks who goes in the cabin. Annabeth says no one. Piper disagrees because there is a footprint on the dusty entrance. So clearly someone has gone in at some point. Piper enters despite Annabeth's protesting, and she immediately doesn't like the vibes. All that's inside is a statue of Hera and a brazier, which is lit, which intrigues Piper of, okay, well, if no one's in here, who's lighting the brazier? And as narrator says, quote, no, this wasn't her mom. At least Piper was sure of that. She hadn't come in here, and that made me really think that it's her mom. She hadn't come in here because she felt a good connection, but because her sense of dread was stronger here. Her dream, that horrible ultimatum she'd been handed, had something to do with this cabin. And this is where I wrote my notes. Hera is either her mom or the mistress, and I am intrigued. Piper then can tell they aren't alone and notices someone in a black shawl chanting a prayer of sorts. Annabeth recognizes the figure as Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And narrator Piper lets us know that Rachel Elizabeth Dare is 17.
Oh, okay.
Was Rachel Elizabeth Dare canonically older than Percy and Annabeth?
How?
I mean, 1 year, at least for Percy. I don't know when Annabeth's birthday is, but
Well,
Percy just turned 16.
Technically, you're older than me right now.
Gosh, you love to hold it over my head.
For 3 months.
For 3 months. Not even. It's less than 3 months. Oh, I'm so young. 31 and youthful. I'm a 32-year-old man who's never read the Percy Jackson books as I wither away. Piper then contends. So we learn about Rachel Elizabeth Dare that she's wearing a green blouse and jeans with marker doodles all over them. Classic. And she's also barefoot, which is interesting. Rachel Elizabeth Dare apologizes and says that she came as fast as she could. They talk about Percy for a bit, and then Annabeth realizes she's being rude and introduces Piper to Rachel and Rachel to Piper. Piper checks that she's the friend who lives in the cave. Rachel Elizabeth Dare confirms. Piper checks that she can see the future, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare says, quote, more like the future mugs me from time to time, which
I love
is
that description. That's
great.
so funny.
I love Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She's fantastic. I'm so glad she's in the mix. Rachel Elizabeth Dare explains a bit more about her whole Oracle stuff. Piper is confused that a mortal would be in this cabin, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that there's some sort of connection with Percy going missing and this cabin. So Hera's got to be in there. And I think it would track for Hera to be more involved in Heroes of Olympus because we really didn't get a lot of Hera in PJO. She got into the mix in book 4 a little bit and a little bit in book 5, but really not much. And when you look at all the Olympians, she's really the one that was in the least. Everybody else kind of did some stuff.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of Apollo, but I know, or at least I'm assuming that the Trials of Apollo are about him and not Apollo Creed from Rocky. And everybody else had a pretty sizable role. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hera, maybe Hestia coming back too, since she was only a little tiny bit, but she was still in the last Olympian.
She was the last
Olympian. She was
Olympian.
the titular last Olympian. So I feel like Hera being in Heroes of Olympus would make sense. So I'm intrigued. So Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that she follows her hunches, especially ever since the gods went silent about a month ago. Piper and me say, went silent? Rachel Elizabeth Dare is shocked that Annabeth didn't tell her yet. Annabeth explains that it made for a better plot. Chiron nods in approval in the distance. But no, Annabeth says that she was getting to it and was going to tell her eventually. She says that silence from the gods isn't uncommon, but usually you get some messages, some sort of communication. And then she reveals that the Empire State Building is Olympus and explains all that to Piper. And Piper has the perfect response. Sure, why not? Which is just great. I love it. That made me like Piper so much, so much. And what's funny is I was doing a bonus episode on Patreon where I was going through all the questions that people had sent in the live stream Q&A because there were too many for me to answer on stage. And in one of the emails, someone mentioned that The Lost Hero was the first PJO book they read. And they were really confused. So they very much felt like Piper and Jason not knowing what's going on.
That's very
And
interesting.
I just imagine that if you didn't recognize that there was a whole previous series, you would get to this point and then you would say, sure, why not? Yeah.
Sure.
So then you get a similar kind of joke when Annabeth continues on saying that Dionysus is the camp director, and Annabeth explains that the entrance was closed, no one knows why, none of the gods are answering prayers, and Dionysus, the camp director, was recalled, and Piper basically asks, I'm sorry, the god of wine was in charge of the camp? So things were already bad. Then Percy went missing, and then Jason showed up. So there's just a whole lot going on in rapid succession. Piper reminds Annabeth that she got a message from Hera, though. Annabeth is like, yeah, the most useless goddess contacts her least favorite demigod, telling her to find some guy with one shoe. They all agree that something weird is going on. Piper finally musters up the courage to describe her dream, but then Rachel Elizabeth Dare goes stiff, because of course. Her eyes glow green. She grabs Piper's shoulders, and in a voice that sounds like a woman trapped deep down in a well, says, quote, "Free me, Piper McLean, or the earth shall swallow us. It must be by the solstice." And I love that the solstice is the deadline again. This is like Stephen King making every book in Maine. I love it. Just make every deadline the solstice. I don't care. Give it to me every single time. It's perfect. No notes. So happy. But again, I'm trying to figure out who this is. Calling her Piper McLean full first name, last name feels less like this would be her mom. Or at least if this is Hera as the voice, doesn't feel like Hera's. I don't know. The full name made me feel like this might not be her mom. But I'm super interested to see what's going on. I don't know, but this does feel like we've got an evil voice speaking to Piper and then a good voice speaking to Piper. I don't think this is the mistress unless they're trying to trick her. But because so recently we have the mistress being like, and like showing up in the dream and in the blade, I don't think all of a sudden the mistress would hard pivot into pretending. Yeah, like if anyone's played the Spider-Man 2 video game and there's something where a villain basically does a please rescue me and then you save a person and then it's a villain. And you're like, oh, dang it. Like, I don't think it would be that. Very much if you've seen Spider-Man 1 when Green Goblin pretends to be the old lady and then terrifies Michael Schubert for the rest of his life because of the jump scare with the like it is. I don't think it's one of those things. So I think this is a good person being genuine. Like, you gotta free me, or the earth shall swallow us. Ooh, that makes me think Uranus is, but Uranus was the sky. Gaia was the earth. Unless evil Gaia? No. So many possibilities. Anyway. Annabeth tries to separate them, but it's no use. Green smoke covers all of them. Piper can't tell what's real and what's not. The statue seems to rise from its throne and look Piper in the eyes and open its mouth. And then some voice says, quote, "Our enemies stir. The fiery one is only the first." That feels like the mistress. "The fiery one is only the first. Bow to his will, and their king shall rise, dooming us all. Free me!" And also, Piper notes that the statue had bad breath, which seems impossible, but I don't know who the he is for bow to his will and their king shall rise, dooming us all. Like, there's so many things. There's a lot. There's a lot. Like, too much, I feel like, for me to even make any sort of guess. But what I've written in my notes is, I think this is the good guy counter to whatever evil dream Piper has been having. Fiery one feels like the bad voice, can't be Leo because fiery hammer. So I don't think that that's the fiery one. Like, I think the fiery one is the evil fire thing. We saw her dad in front of fire. Like, I think that could be whatever's going on with the mistress and stuff like that. Piper's knees then give out and everything goes black. And that's the end of chapter 4. So what do you want to title chapter 4? If going with a quirky little thing, I would say, I obtain a family heirloom.
Okay.
For the knife.
I hold my cards close to my vest.
Okay, nice.
I don't know.
That was chapter 4. Kelly, thank you so much for joining. This was a delight.
It was a delight. It was difficult to say nothing to your word soup there at the end.
I know, but that's
the name of the game.
That's the name of chapters early on in a book, especially book 1.
The name of the card game.
Name of the card game.
That I'm holding close to my...
Egyptian rat screw. So, this is normally where people promote stuff. Anything you want to promote?
There is a really, really fantastic podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you should give it a listen, called Meddling Adults.
Nice.
Potterless Horse. Great podcast. You've probably heard of the newest Olympian, so I won't spend any time promoting that here. But those other 3, really great.
Wow. No love for Modern Muckraker, Mike Schubert?
Oh, sorry. And Modern Muckraker. I mean, those 4, just really phenomenal. Or check out Magic Shop Patches on Etsy.
Do it. Kelly has very cute things. BTS stuff.
BTS is coming back.
Yeah.
Jin, it's like a matter of weeks now until we get more Jin content, and I'm very excited.
Where Jin is the only member of BTS not in the army?
Yeah.
Wild.
It's going to be, we're just all going to be in the custody of Jin for a little while. It's going to be chaotic.
So yeah, get some of Kelly's patches and stickers and notebooks and all sorts of fun stuff. It's all very pretty. If you look at TNO merch and you go, wow, that's pretty, it's because Kelly designs all of it. So you can also get TNO merch, but also get Kelly's Magic Shop Patches stuff. Search Magic Shop Patches on Etsy or go to thenewsolympian.com/merch to get Kelly's merch. But Kelly, thank you so much for joining, listeners.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening. And until we figure out what's going on with all of this, or probably not because it's the Leo chapters and Leo's just going to be like, la 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 the whole time. Until then, I'll see you later. Hi, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Krugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you enjoy the show and you can't get enough, you can head on over to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, and you can get access to a whole bunch of bonus content. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and there's a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. If you want to support the show with some TNO merch, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/merch. And if you want to see if we've got a live show coming to a city near you, head on over to thenewestolympian.com/live. I mentioned that Patreon earlier. Let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Margot Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Santa Kopf, Julia Kendall, Ricky, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Per Sasabeth, Aiden Parziani, Biggest Tyson Fan, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction Coming Up, Ginger Spurs Boy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Olivia Krinicki, Bradamus Prime, Kibo Guy, Skylar Sisters, Demigod Nurse, Zachary Hamilton, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, and Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the podcast so much. Whether you reach out to someone directly and say, hey, there's this podcast called The Newest Olympian. It's about Percy Jackson. I think you would really like it. Whether that person is a Percy Jackson superfan or someone you're trying to convince to get into the books. You can also just talk about the show on social media. That helps. You could even just leave a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really help. I appreciate everyone who has already done so, and I appreciate anyone who will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode where we will be joined by Dr. Stephen Parr to discuss chapters 5 and 6, the first Leo chapters of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So currently in this Shubio, I have a cardboard box that I'm keeping here because I bought a new pair of sunglasses for my adult recreational softball league. The box is just hanging out here in case I have to return them. So I'm just going to fiddle around with this cardboard box for the ASMR Mike segment this episode. Thank you so much for listening.